All right, so there we go. For those at home, and Paul, we have up the expense side of the building department budget, which is all pretty straightforward, right? We always try to knock something out, but there's nothing to knock out, is there?
No, we try to be as lean as possible and efficient.
So, conference training, you knocked it back $500?
Yeah, one of the reasons is the way things are now. A lot of the training ends up going online, and it's just changed how certification, what we're getting. So it's a little bit in flux, but we do think it's going to be less than it's been in the past.
Mm-hmm. So, while we're at it, not specific to that, how is your progress on the scanning and virtualization of everything we do?
Okay, so very good. We've actually gone through a lot during the time we had of going through all the old files, organizing the files. And we recently had a young college student that came in to help scan, and he's a whiz, really helping us go through a lot of the documents. Most importantly, we're shifting to a cloud-based, the hope is to shift to a cloud-based computer software system for permitting.
A different system?
Yeah.
Everything goes to a different system?
Yeah, so right now we use Minicity, which
Yeah.
is Minicity Enterprise.
Right.
And it's basically local, so it's server-based. And with all the scanning and everything, obviously it could affect our server. And every system now is going forward to the cloud-based.
Yes.
And one of the reasons in the future, you can have online permitting, a little bit ease for public access.
Right.
Ease for us to access, work
Yeah,
offline,
right.
because it's basically, you can access their website with a password. And Minicity is going to Minicity 5, which is cloud-based. They're disregarding the system we're using, so you'll no longer be able to utilize it. You can just access it. So eventually we have to make that change. So we decided to do a study of different programs out there instead of being pigeonholed into just Minicity 5, because they're just the ones we've been using. And we found a better company. Been extremely helpful, organized, catered to what we need. So we're actually, and they've been great in the sense that they've been working with us now, making that transition. We haven't even paid anything yet. We don't have to do it. They pushed it over to our next budget in June 1st. So they've been extremely workable for us.
And can, in the end, all the data get sucked into the new thing?
Yeah, as soon as we go through all the files, because of, I constantly call our building inspector, who like copies and information. So it takes a while to vet through. We personally go through it, and we are uploading every old permit in there and organizing all the paperwork for those. So everything that will go in will have a proper place.
And is it your goal at some point to have all of the old historical paper records digitized?
Yes.
And is that imaginable in our lifetime?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe
Absolutely.
yours, not mine.
We've actually.
Don't laugh, Alvarez.
We've got, it's a tedious process of scanning.
Oh, I know.
And as I said, the prior part-time help we had was very good, but nothing like the kid we just hired recently who came on board. He is fantastic.
And can you keep him for a while?
We're hoping. He's in college, and he comes back when he can.
Yeah.
During the season, we're looking forward to the summer to knock out a lot. I'm just amazed by how much he can get accomplished. We're actually behind. So if he goes away, we catch up and just try to get as much time. But we've been extremely busy, so any downtime we get, we vet the old files. But what we're actually starting to do is, as houses get sold, and if they need to go through open permits, we're actually taking that time and taking a little bit more time to vet and go through the permits at that stage to really clean up the whole file.
That makes sense.
So that number shows up in your last budget line on page 2, right? Software support expense? Which is 85.
For the system, yes. For the new system we're going with, as far as the part-time help, that is actually the time it will be to have somebody in the office to do that.
So, but that is an initial setup fee of $3,500.
Correct. That's a one-time fee to set
And then
up.
a yearly of $5,000, which
Correct.
is reasonable enough.
Municity was actually, potentially, Municity 5 would have been twice that.
Really? Wow.
And that's why a lot of local municipalities started to do research to shift them then, because they felt maybe a little handcuffed on them, figuring that you're familiar with them, most would just jump right into the next system. We just thought that's a little expensive.
And And how far along in this transition would you start to take online applications?
Probably at the time we look to maybe implement taking the online payments as well, because that's probably, and one of the things I wanted to vet is, I know a couple of towns that do that right now, so the public uploads some files. I just want to find out, how do I know they're uploading a correct file? If it's not fillable online, because we have a lot of supporting documents. So I just don't want to have to make more
Yeah.
time for us that we're vetting paperwork that is not accurate.
Understood.
So that's going to take a little bit more time to vetting, but ultimately, I think the biggest goal would be that the public has access to a read-only. And the nicest thing about this new company, they can easily adjust it to where the public can get only a read access, assessors can get read access to somebody, so you're not going in there and manipulating documents or permits, which would be obviously a setup that we wouldn't want.
Right.
But ideally, from homeowners to real estate agents to title searchers, they can actually access it. Not that we don't want to meet them and help them, but they can actually access these, because people start to work and do things 24/7 today. They want that ease of access. I want to look at a property. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. They really couldn't do that. They have to come to us and access, which, like I said, I don't want to lose that interpersonal, but
But sometimes you're
technology
being pulled
going
in too many
forward.
places at once, yeah.
But I also look at it, we have to have all the information there and all of it correct, because right now we're half computer system, half hard copies of old files, and some literally on index cards, permits issued in the 30s.
Yeah.
So until we get that all in the system, it's not really worthwhile to go live for the public yet, but hopefully we get there.
And then, once it's all up and running and digitized, do you actually throw out the paper records?
Yes.
Right.
Because of a lot of it, I have faxes in these files that are blank.
Yeah, because they faded in.
And the drawings are disintegrating, and older letters, it's not worth keeping at that
Yeah.
point. It's freeing up space in our office, and it's also just not worth it anymore. We have it in the cloud base, and it's backed up, and even on our server it's backed up. So one of the things we talked with the companies about, the security purpose and the legality of it, like having this documentation.
Yeah. So your overall budget is up about $10,000, virtually all of which is in this piece of it,
Yeah.
right? I didn't realize, the 2008 Escape is being used by you guys too?
Yeah, that's always been, we've
Yeah.
had the truck.
Yeah.
In case of just, both of us have to go out at separate times.
Understood, yeah.
But the assessor actually uses it on the weekends. So,
Okay. Any other questions on that side, or shall I ditch the expense and look at the revenue?
How did you get yours?
Oh, I opened it up in
Landscape.
Acrobat and
Oh, okay.
fixed
Yeah,
I opened it somewhere else too.
I don't have
Yeah.
it somewhere else, right?
Yeah. I guess I had a question on that last piece about accessing everything online. Can one access other people's homes permits online in the cloud then?
yeah, everything
Because
we
it
get
would-
is public record.
Exactly, but when something's public record and in person, there's that natural barrier where you wouldn't go look up necessarily someone else's
It is
home.
prior
Or-
to going live, we would want to make sure we're vetting the process of how that works. But if a homeowner, if anyone came in today, an architect, and said, I'm potentially have a client at this property, can I look at
Yeah.
the file?
Yeah.
We'd hand them the file.
Right.
So he could look at everything right there, sometimes take a photo, we'll give him copies of something. So it would be no different, just ease for him to do it at his leisure instead of actually have to come in. That's really what it is.
Yeah, I guess I'm more. I don't want to. I mean, I'm hypothesizing a problem that we don't even know if it will exist, but kind of neighbors looking at other neighbors' proposed projects in the cloud, online,
I mean,
which
it's
they
their right.
could do, which they could do,
It
which
is
they
their
could do
right.
anyway. You know what I mean, though, that
Yes, I do.
they're not going to do it. Most likely, they're not going to come in and talk
Correct.
to you and
That's what I meant about that
pull someone else's file.
personal interaction.
Yeah,
Having a face-to-face conversation with people, you get a different conversation than you do if they're
Yeah.
not in front of you and they're doing something just, at their leisure. But I wouldn't say that's my first goal of being able to provide the public, but one of the things of this going forward, just as the future's gonna hold us, is that's the wave of where everything's going, is going to online permitting, going to access online, trying to make it to where it's user-friendly for the residents.
yeah.
But there might be some drawbacks to that prior to going that, we're hoping to vet a lot of it. I never like being the first one, and I see a lot of other colleagues, and I get a feel for them. I've even visited them. I went to some of these other municipalities when I even looked at Municipal
did?
5. I just did my research. Tell me how you're using it. What's going on here? So I'll do the same at that point, saying, what are the
It's in
issues
that
you're
PDF
finding?
exercise.
Does it
Yeah.
work for
There
you?
is a rotate
Because you
function.
really
Just
want to
ignore
try to
those.
vet it all to say we can kind of cover as many bases as possible to avoid any potential larger issues that could come about.
Yeah,
But I agree with you.
unintended consequences.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
All right, so I had the revenue side up, and really that whole story is about trying to predict building department fees, right?
Very difficult.
Right. So you have slotted in there 200,000, less than we've seen in recent years.
Well,
But who knows, right? I mean, you've had some big stuff in
Right.
recent years.
But I will say also a big portion has been the driving force of the residential sector.
Right.
It's when COVID hit, we all figured things would go, definitely get quieter, and it's ramped up like I've never seen.
We
I
were
think a
at
lot
a-
has to do with how people live in and also with kind of, insurance rates and house rates and all of that right now. But, residential is a strong part of that. But yes, some of the bigger ones are the developments. So I try to eliminate potential big developments that could come. I don't include those in. I go back to what maybe is more reasonable kind of basis based on our past history and let the chips fall if bigger developments are coming, because then it's a plus. And obviously we'll adjust if we see something come down the pipe. But
Right.
the residential sector has
We're
been-
well ahead in the fiscal year ending
yeah.
May 2022 at the moment, right? So, Yeah.
As I had my initial sit down with the administrator, literally we were doing a Zoom meeting and I hear somebody at the counter and it's like a $6,000 building permit for a residential. So
right, so
it
shall we change
happens.
this to 2006?
Yeah, it just happens that
206.
fast that we anticipate and we're always trying to be
Yeah.
cautious, and then all of a sudden, boom, you just get a run on
Yeah.
work that's happening. Literally, there's significant, especially with people buying new houses in town, they're coming in and doing some significant work. But sometimes I don't hear about this, all of a sudden I get a call from an architect.
Right.
And it's like, and they're asking some zoning questions. I'm like, what property is that? And then they explain it, and I'm like, well, okay, that's right. That property did sell, and all of a sudden you're getting an idea that they might do some significant changes.
We have some family that's trying to move here, and we were at a open house around the corner from us, and there were 30 people lined up to get into an open house. I've never ever seen
Wow.
that before. It's unreal.
No, it's.
Yeah.
I hear it from other colleagues, but I don't. When I tell them some of that, I knew of a house that had 40-something offers.
Mhm.
They even stopped taking the offers. A couple of my colleagues are like, "We're not getting that." So I'm like, I think a lot of things that are going on, a lot of the businesses that are coming in are telling us they're hearing everything going on. They see it, so they're
Yeah.
excited about it. But
Yeah.
good for us. We're happy to be busy. We just tell people, have patience.
Yeah.
Try to help you as best as possible, as quickly
Yeah.
as possible. But
Well,
not so much we can do.
I mean, as we have said before, but it bears saying again, I get so many positive comments about you and your department. Not only the experience people have had, but sometimes the experience they've had contrasted with experiences they've had in places they've lived in the past. So,
I'm appreciative of that. It's a little sad note to figure that we shouldn't be an outlier.
yeah,
We should be the norm. But I've been on the other side. Why I'm on this side to help.
right.
To tell people, listen, I'm not going to tell you everything you want to hear. But
Yeah.
I'm going to explain it to you so you understand what's going on and why.
Right.
We don't make the codes up. Pull out the book, show them, guide them. And I think knowledge is key. When they walk away
Yeah.
feeling that they were explained it, they get it, and it's less likely. 'Cause I understand. Nobody wants to file a building permit. I get it. It's already an uphill battle right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Taxes, fees, costs of construction. I get it. I shouldn't be a problem in this process. I should just be the guy guiding you through it.
Right.
And there to ask any questions. But, we're happy to hear that. We'll continue, and hopefully, the new people coming in, they get it too, and they get that experience right off the bat, and they understand, collect more bees with honey. I'd rather have them call for a question. I get people saying to me all the time, this is a stupid question. I'm saying, no, it's not. Because you don't do this every day. I do. How would you know the code? There's 9 code books, thousands of sections and pages.
Right.
What's going on? Sometimes it's a little difficult pulling in information because they're hesitant to tell you. But I always tell people, I don't have handcuffs. I'm not there to arrest you. It's rectifiable.
We have people for that, but you're not.
Right. If you're willing to address the matter, then we can work with you. It just all depends on the level of the matter. Some things take a little bit more precedent than others, but what's going on? That's what we always try to ask the people. What's happening? How can we walk you through and help? The hardest part is probably selling, when they sell their houses, and we kind of walk them through that process because they're really in a crunch at that point, and that becomes a little problem.
Right.
But the majority of people get it and understand, and they're not happy in certain instances, but I always say it's like an art to get people to thank you after they have to do something and correct it. But you got to figure out a way to get there, the way they don't feel as if they're maybe blindsided. And we're still learning. We have issues that we
Right.
may have. All the time I sit back and say, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have acted that way. Constantly learning to try to make sure the people are getting it. Because I live in a town too. I have to deal with a building department. one of my good friends is a building inspector. I'm like, oh boy, he's not easy. He's not easy. So I get it. I'm understanding. I have to call him and be like, hey, listen, can you, relax. It's okay. You can work with the people here.
Yeah. All right, anybody have any comments? I mean, it's,
I've a couple of unrelated questions for you when we're done with
Sure, go ahead.
So can you give us an update on progress and estimated completion for the buildings in the village center that are being constructed?
Sure. Yeah. The heart of downtown by the post office, both are going really well, but this one in particular is going quite well. As I've always said, the developer is very specific in how he goes about what he puts into the building, so it's probably going slower than what a typical
So
developer
this
would
Vito
do.
and 70 Memorial?
Yeah, 70
Okay.
more. So that's the
Okay.
one by the post office.
Yeah.
It's a sizable building,
Mhm.
so it's a lot going on. It's being run first class, I can tell you. These guys are first class. A lot of them coming out of the city. They almost come up thinking there's a bit of a higher level of attention to certain things, but we're like, city has its own code, a little different. I recommend getting a chance to get in the building, be a walkthrough, you get a real feel for that entire, how the scope of the project's happening and what's going on. That's a little ways out, and it's constantly a little moving number in a sense of where that could be, and I would hate to even tell you when because of the way that mentality of the developer thinks as far as quality.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him analyze over some minor details, so I know he wants to get in, but I don't think it's just numbers for him. I think it's his name on this building.
Yeah.
And from day one, he always talked about this being part of his family
Mm-hmm.
for history. So it's a little outlier as far as typical developments. As you can see with the one on the Sawmill is moving very fast, and it's probably going to outpace this one over here pretty quickly because that's basically, it's a code building, a nice building quality, but they are just, churning it out to get it finished. We were told a while back that they were going to be done, I think they were saying maybe October, November coming up with this next year.
Okay.
So, and, I think that's just proof of how they're moving forward. And I've also been
Not
told
in
that
quite a
they
while.
figured to
It's in
be
the garage
fully
a
occupied by the
few
time they're
months ago.
sold. So I think that's also an incentive.
Yeah.
Not that it isn't on this one and by the post office, but it's just a little night and day of how he has gone about.
Have they
his-
started advertising the units along the Sawmill?
Not that I'm aware of, no,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of. And anyone has called us with interest, which there has been, we have just given them in public record the contact information for both developers and say, you gotta reach out to them because it's not something we will
Yeah.
get involved in. And even the affordable units that they required would not come through us, it would go through the Housing Action Council, which I understand might be transitioning as well. We help them anytime we can to facilitate, but we would just usually pass the name to them and say, contact this people, because they have to work directly with them. But both are going well, but I would say, if you are looking at October, November for that one over there, you're probably looking at a good 6 months or more for this one to get it. Total different construction, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
This one could have been built conventionally with wood and everything legally, but he opted for this level, which is
Yeah.
above and beyond. That's skyscraper size. I only use that term, layman
Yeah.
term, but that's literally above and beyond what could have been built for that size of a building.
Mhm.
Although quite large for Pleasantville, not large for the building code.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Interesting. Thank you.
I've seen permits up in the old village. Is that something that we can discuss here? Or is that all private? The commercial space in the old village
yeah,
that's
sure.
been.
The little shopping area.
Yeah.
Where Kraft is.
Yep.
Yeah, so that building, Kraft is expanding, the
Mhm.
left side. The prior owner, prior to them expanding, what he did, it used to be Michael's Restaurant, then
Yeah.
went into, and I forget the name off the top of my head that it became after them. O'Connor's.
Honors, yeah.
The building owner came in and cleaned up both spaces and divided it,
Right.
figuring maybe a better offering to have two separate tenant spaces. Well, Kraft took one of them,
Right.
and we actually have a deli going into the next
That's what
one.
I wondered because I saw a
Yeah.
new permit as of
Yeah.
a couple days ago, even up there on the
it's
deli side.
Literally going to be just a deli store, nothing, no, couple seats, nothing.
Yeah.
It meets the threshold of what would be considered a retail space. So
Okay.
it's not a fast food restaurant or a restaurant itself. But yeah, another food place. I've been saying to people, you're either a restaurant, a gym, a nail salon, or some personal service. No more retail. We've
Right,
not gotten any inquiries about retail.
What's going in next to Flower and Sun? On Washington Avenue.
Clarence.
So that was
The
Vito's
bakery.
office himself.
Yeah.
He built that in the former Chase space?
Yeah, so that was just the Chase office, that was the banking. So the developer took over there and built that out for his office. So the developer here, his whole team is in that first floor, ground floor
Is
area.
there empty space next
No.
to that somewhere? No,
I don't think so.
There's a small little retail shop that just went out of business not long ago, Candlelicious. So that's there, but it's a very, very small space.
Okay.
Right. Kimberly House is still there, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So then, and while we're at it, but we should jump on so we don't keep these guys
Yeah.
waiting too much longer, but a steak place going in where Bollywood was?
Yep.
And Chatterbox
Steak place?
Restaurant
Yeah.
going in and almost ready, apparently,
Yep.
in the old Mediterranean.
So yes, Chatterbox has taken over the old Mediterranean. They cleaned it up. They should be opening soon. I know, I think they were doing takeout recently.
Yeah, I saw they were highlighted in Lohud today, 8 new restaurants opening and 2 of them were in Pleasantville, making reference to Chatterbox and also to the renovations going on to change up Fat Root, putting in a bar.
Yep, they've opted to go from what they were as a fast food restaurant to a restaurant. The only difference in our zoning code means that you have wait service or you don't.
Yeah.
I think they figured that Pub Street was doing well. They probably wanted to make that a little bit more of a formal sit down. So they're changing where you come in and you're getting queue line and a
Yeah.
little seating to just a bar area.
Yeah, but they'll still do the takeout as they always did.
Yeah.
And you said what about Bollywood? I missed
Bollywood is turning into a steak restaurant.
a steakhouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had not heard that.
working on it right now.
Yeah, don't know the name per se,
Well, we
but I've
saw
spoken
it.
There's
to
a
them.
sign up,
Yeah.
Stakeout, was it? Or
Yeah,
something like that.
but they're in there just cosmetically cleaning up, painting,
Okay.
making, I think, a little bit more to their liking as far as the cosmetics inside, but no, nothing major construction, but I imagine they should be open soon.
Wow. And we approved a liquor license for the former Flights Bar location as well.
New owner took over there, yes.
New ownership
Let me
there.
just be clear, so we're not approving the liquor license, we're just waiting.
No.
Sorry,
Waiving our-
excuse me. Excuse me.
And
Yes,
we-
I misspoke.
I just didn't want people to misunderstand.
Totally. Yeah.
I have a good question. The bakery, is there, I
Yeah.
keep getting a
Yeah, Fleetwood.
Yeah,
bakery
Yeah.
nonstop.
I ask him this every day.
Probably
It's
the
like-
number one business I've been asked about in 8 years here. I'll be crystal clear, he's had a,
Driving me crazy. I'm like.
He's had a C of O to open.
So
Yeah.
for
He's
the
had-
record though, could you explain what's happening?
yeah, he's had a
Everyone
C of
thinks
O.
that we're the ones holding it up.
No, absolutely not. The reason for that, I think, is because he still has the building permits on the door, and I've asked him to take it down, because he's had a C of O to operate for a couple months now. They went in and did a lot of work on their own choice, cleaned it up, really made it nice. I met one of the owners, and they were literally baking in prep, I think, beginning of December, telling me they were opening up like December 8th at the time or so. Never happened. I reached out to him recently, just asking, making sure that maybe something personal happened. You know, we try to create somewhat of a relationship and said, hey, I hope everything's okay. You do have a C of O, and I think he point blank told me they are having difficulty getting cake designers and bakers.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
Which is evidently is a national problem,
Yeah.
not just a
I
regional.
take that as the truth. I don't know any reason why somebody wouldn't open up a business after investing that much and having a C of O. I've had a couple people tell me fingers are being pointed at the building department. Nothing I can do about that, but certainly not us. You know, if there was a situation, I would explain it and tell them this is what's happening or why they're not open. But they've had a C of O for a while, and I'm surprised as anyone that they're not open. So I've asked them, can you take the building permits
Thank you for the
down?
record for that.
Yeah.
Put the C of O up and take the building permit down, so maybe people can.
And the Thanksgiving sign.
Yeah. But I was happy to hear at least he
Yeah.
responded, because I would assume that maybe if he just completely disappeared, maybe it had more to do with from a financial end or something going on. But point blank, and Chatterbox mentioned a recent similar item about having difficulty getting workers.
It's tough, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I hope he's open soon, and I told him in an email, I said, everyone is anxious, and it's, I think, a good business for town. It's something that we
Yeah.
don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So He's.
I mean, that's been a
There's,
bakery
there's
since
some
time
skill
began.
here.
That's right.
That could be
Local skills.
used, you know.
Maybe I could give him. We don't want to lose her.
I was gonna say, don't point it
Pass the name along.
out. We need her doing what she's doing. All right, with that, we should get to her. So thank you,
Thank
Robert
you so
Hughes.
much.
Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Robert.
here we go, Stephanie. Tim, Austin. I'm gonna share my screen.
Sorry to keep you so late.
Thank you, Stephanie. by the way.
Hello? We're starting with revenues,
Expenses.
expenses.
Okay, there you go. So, we always try to find something to complain about, and there's nothing to complain about. Right? Any news from your standpoint about how things are going? I mean, I noticed that court officer number is a little less than we had in the adopted budget last year.
Yeah, we
That's
did,
just because we're kind of running low anyway?
yes, and looking back on past years,
Yes.
we sort of averaged, it's not really been over close to that, so we went down a little.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Okay,
I always sort of buffer extra for unforeseen contingencies, like
Right.
jury trials or something, or more arraignments or something, but I
Mhm.
think we'll be fine.
okay, and then understandably, conferences and training bounces back up, having been down
Yes.
next to nothing
Yeah,
when
And now-
nobody was going anywhere, and now they can.
they go back in training.
Otherwise, anybody see anything they want to ask questions about?
I have a quick question on this.
Yeah.
Has there been any kind of, like, with the times, and I'm not sure about this question, did we do any virtual court in any kind of way?
Yes, we did,
And,
mhm.
oh, we did, okay.
Yes.
And was that seen as something that made cost in any way less, or did it add more to cost overall to run it that way?
I tried, there's some, the equipment most of the equipment I got from the Office of Court Administration. Whenever possible, I try to reach out to the Office of Court Administration for support, technical support for an equipment.
The very desks we sit at.
Yes.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. And we have been doing a hybrid, where sometimes the judge and myself and some of the attorneys are present and some are not. And the jail did not, wanted to reduce any prisoner transport. So if we had anyone that were incarcerated, we were doing virtual with the county jail for arraignments and hearings. And sometimes, because the DA's office was short-staffed, it gave their assistant district attorneys opportunity sort of, by doing it virtual, to be in two places at once. They could
Right.
do here and do another court within minutes. So we can consider, it didn't really, I think, add so much to our costs. I tried to avoid that. We're now resuming in-person hearings and appearances, but I think a hybrid model will probably continue into the future. So, I hope that answers.
Okay, that's great, that's great to know. I mean, I'm asking more because I appear in Westchester Family Court often, and that's still all virtual completely. And I've noticed, at least on my end, in appearing in hearings, it seems to go a lot faster
Yes.
through Zoom. It seems like it kind of just moves a little quicker when people are on video than when they're in person. So I just didn't know if that impacted you guys at all.
Yeah. But now I said the Office of Government, for the lower courts, the town and village courts, they've always sort of set us, have run by a different set of rules. I think they want us to sort of go back to try to, whenever possible, to do arraignments in person. Doesn't matter how serious the charge is, usually we are the ground floor of where everything starts before it moves over to the county court. We just had a felony arraignment yesterday. We were here yesterday and Sunday for 4 hours for a DWI felony arraignment. And so everything begins here, and because of so many things are subject to appellate rules, they are a little more stringent about us trying to make sure that everything is covered, especially with Raymond, anything is not done correctly, it is grounds for appeal. So we're sort of subject to sort of trying to do everything in person to make sure the person that understands their rights, has counsel present, has an interpreter, and understands our proceedings from beginning to end. Because it can be, again, grounds for appeal and dismissal if anything is not properly done. And I'll go out of my way to ensure that it is. That's part of my job.
How many criminal
Perfect.
cases?
That's great. Thank you so much for the services. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
How many criminal cases do you guys see a year?
It has gone down since with bail reform.
Mhm.
I would tell you at our height, we had seen for penal law cases, over at our height, 100 cases a year. Before that, in 2019, we did 70, and in 2020, we did 30.
Wow.
But it's starting to go up. So far, at the beginning of this year, it seemed 22.
So when people get off Zoom, they get into crime.
Yeah. So now we're just getting into March, and we've seen 22 matters.
All right, then I'm on the revenue page, which is obviously a shot in the dark, right? We don't know what the lay of the land is in terms of fines and forfeited bail. We don't know what the lay of the land is in terms of parking violations. So we're just guessing, fair to say, right?
Yes.
So, which is about all we can do.
I think with Pango, the Pango app, people have really used the Pango a lot.
Yes.
That's been a success, but a success that it sometimes causes a slight reduction in tickets being issued.
Well, I mean, it's not our goal to write
Violations.
tickets, so if people,
Yeah, it's about-
give people a chance to do it right to begin with and to make it easier for them.
That's
Do we see
definitely-
growth in that every month?
We have.
Yeah.
We're around 3,000 a month now.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And it's a story across their platform. You know, the other communities in Westchester that have Pango, they're seeing the same growth in use, so.
Right. Well, I mean, more and more people, they notice, they download the app, and after you download it and get yourself set up, it's very easy.
Very convenient.
When are we changing over the Memorial Plaza lot?
We're waiting for Con Ed to hook up the electricity.
So,
Today, the
20,
shelters.
I saw the rain shelter today.
Yeah, the shelters
Looks
got,
good.
Yep, delivered and installed today.
Great,
So we're waiting for the lights to be turned on,
great.
so to speak.
All right. Can't think of anything else to ask you other than to say thank you for all you do and for the cookies.
Yeah, thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Very generous of you.
Pass that, that's about
Okay.
the list of
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's.
I like the look of your hair too.
Oh,
Very
thank
nice.
you. Thank you very much.
This is VTL.
Vehicle and traffic law.
Ah,
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you all.
thank you.
All right,
Take care.
thank you,
Pleasure,
Steph.
Thank you.
All right.
People.
Joni
commit
Ehrlich,
as
are you
when they're
there?
I am here.
When they're at home.
Welcome,
When they're.
virtually. So I'm going to share my screen, put up your expense piece. I have done so. All right, so why don't you the big picture here, is a relatively stable year, right?
Yeah.
So, any news to report about how things are changing? You think the hopefully post-COVID world ends up the same as it used to be, or is it different permanently, or?
It's different. It's different. The seniors that were coming to programs pre-COVID, during COVID, they've gotten more frail, a lot of life changes. So they're not most of them have not been coming back out.
Uh-huh.
So we're seeing some newer seniors that want some different kinds of programming. So we're just kind of trying to shift again.
Right. So I'm just looking down there, nothing striking here in your expense numbers. Obviously, it's a little bit of a shot in the dark about utilities and all that. Don't know exactly what that will all look like. And no big change in the vehicle repair and maintenance. How is the bus and the Ford Transit doing? Are we in pretty good shape?
Yeah, they're both in good shape.
Okay.
I spoke with the mechanics and they said, everything looks good. They're
Mhm.
keeping up on everything. We should be good for a couple more years at least.
Okay. New copier.
Yeah. Our current copier is 15 years old, and we're having a hard time getting some of the pieces replaced. One of the drawers cracked and that kind of stuff. So we'd like to start looking for a new copier, and we will. I got one estimate, one bid prior to the budget process, which is why those numbers are in here.
Yes.
And we'll get some more.
So what are we? This is always copiers and leases have always been since the day I got on the board. Like, oh my god. Well, what are we thinking, guy? I mean, should we lease?
I mean, what's the? I'm sorry, I don't know. What's the use of the copier normally for the senior center? Like how often or?
We use the copier every day. We are going to start taking our bigger copy runs, like our newsletters and calendars, and do them on a bigger machine at Village Hall.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of play around a little bit with what kind of copier I need in the building. Yeah, I mean, we do copies every day.
Still a lot of demand for paper copies of things that
Yeah.
a lot of the
We're
constituents.
still very
No,
paper oriented.
Yeah, I guess you kind of answered my question. I just meant with the physical proximity to Village Hall, I wondered if the 1 block walk was doable, but if it's every day, that's different.
Yeah, no, it's an everyday between, even things like today was like knitting instructions for the knitting group or, the directions on different craft projects. We do an Italian class, so it's kind of like the class outline PowerPoint kind of things. So it's an everyday thing, but the bigger ones will start running from somewhere else. And so I need a copier that obviously can do copies and that we can scan, because we're scanning all the invoices in, we scan in everyone's vaccine cards, their COVID releases, their emergency information. So
What makes sense? Buy or lease? Or, I mean, we don't need to get into the weeds on it, but do you have a view of this?
I personally do not, but.
Hi, so I have a lease in my office and it works out pretty decent. I mean, I have 2 machines. There's a lot of prices available. There's actually a copier machine right down the street from you guys that we lease from on Tompkins Avenue. They are Premier. And yeah, I mean, I think leasing gives you sometimes the best option because you can get leases for 4 or 5 years, just like a car, and a lot of the times they become cheaper and they also have more things available to do, like you can get things hole punched or stapled or scan fax.
All right, watch your step, Alvarez. You're going to get everybody excited about this.
all the stuff. So
Next thing you know, we're going to need
to be
AM,
stuck
FM,
with
and
one
air
machine
conditioning.
for that long, I think, especially with how often things change, I think it's not the best of investments.
You don't have
It's my
mimeograph
success
instead?
on machines like
All
this.
right. Well, I leave this in your capable hands. You think you have a viable number here?
We'll make do within the budget.
All right.
We warned her about this.
Yeah, yeah. Don't even bring it up. Anywhere near me, don't bring it up. Yeah.
So I've heard.
Yeah. I've bothered several people in this room with my sad story of my HP 42-inch printer, but I won't share that with you. Clearly, I should have. Clearly, I should have leased it. All right. So, how about on the kitchen front, how's that all going?
The numbers for people coming in have not come back up, have not come anywhere close. But the numbers for people taking meals to go has really been very steady. We do about 20 meals a day in the to-go. And
Yes.
in-house, and we've been open for in-house meals twice a week for a better part of probably a year and a half. And we're never more than 4.
Really?
Yeah.
And is that, do you think, just a change in demand, or is it about COVID risks?
I think it's really a change in demand. The seniors who were coming in, when we were having meals in and we had the higher numbers were maybe 12 or 14. Those seniors have, made some big changes through COVID. So
Right.
many have moved to different facilities. Many have moved in with family. Some
Right.
unfortunately passed. But they've just gotten much frailer, much faster. So the seniors that are coming in and are doing the to-go meals, they don't want to come in and spend that time in the building. They're coming in to pick up the meal, to go, to do their own things.
And so what that may mean is, as we've struggled a bit in recent years, that rethinking that is likely on the radar screen, right?
I think so.
I mean, do you think years back, for example, some of the holiday events were a big thing, St. Patrick's Day, whatever, absent COVID, God willing, do you think the demand for that still exists, or maybe not?
I think there'll be a group. We are doing a luncheon for St. Patrick's Day this year. We are kind of limiting it a little bit, just because I don't want 10 people at a table like we used to do. So I'll find out. We actually start registering for it tomorrow, so I'll have a better idea of who's willing to come in. More of the conversation is, how many meals can I get to go? So I don't know that we'll get more than 15 or 20 people in the building.
Okay.
Where we used to have 50 or 60 for like a St. Patrick's Day celebration.
Right.
But we're going to offer and we'll try, and then
Yep.
we'll just kind of rethink how we do things.
Okay. And then you have a smaller number in here for trips. Is that because who knows if they can do them?
Most of the seniors, the ones that used to do the trips have now aged out of trips.
Yes.
And the ones that are coming in do all these kinds of things really on their own.
Okay. And how about senior transportation? That number is down too.
Yeah, they're the ones that drive, and the ones that used to use our bus can't really get down the stairs of their apartment building.
Right. And of course, there are many more options now to have things delivered through the grocery
and
store
they've all,
deliveries.
They've gotten pretty good on technology. We've gotten a lot of people up on Zoom, as long as Zoom doesn't change their format. But once something on the screen changes, then we kind of start from scratch. But we've gotten a lot of people up, so they're used to getting us on Zoom. We do all our classes in person and on Zoom, so that they can still participate. And then when the seniors go to Florida or Arizona or wherever they take off to, they still join us. So we are still staying connected, which has been good, but we're just not using the buses as much.
I mean, would you potentially, again, not immediately, but potentially changing what we need in terms of vehicles? Maybe we don't need the bus at some point, or we do? What do you think?
I can't imagine a program without some kind of transportation.
Right.
To do some things.
Yes.
Whether it's something that picks people up to bring them into program, I don't know.
And how about the Meals on Wheels program? What's the status
The
of that?
home delivered meals.
Yes.
Those numbers have never changed through COVID. We're at about 8 people. And we've always fluctuated between probably 6 and 10, but we've been pretty consistent. So even through COVID, those numbers never moved.
Okay. All right, anybody have questions, comments, inquiries?
No, it'll be interesting to see in the next couple months as the mask mandates come off, and hopefully there's at least the appearance of moving past the pandemic, whether you get more people in.
Yeah, it seems like it might take a while too to really see what post-pandemic looks like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, people have to get used to coming back out. You know, we scared them really well to keep them safe.
Yeah,
We scared them really well, now they won't come out.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, it had an impact on a lot of the older generation as well.
Yeah, those that were, older 2 years ago have just aged more than the 2 years.
Yeah. No, I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it happens to all of us. So, and is that what you hear from your colleagues in other communities as well? People are,
Each community has got such a different flavor, but yeah, nobody's got those numbers the way we used to have them.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we're all just waiting to see what,
Yeah.
who's coming back out. Whose kids are not screaming at their parents to not move.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts yet about, changes that you might want to make if people don't return in the same way or in the same numbers, or is it too early to talk about that?
It's a little early because I think we're just getting rid of masks. So, hopefully, March, April, May, we'll get a better feel for who's coming back out, who's coming back home, back to the area from all the other places that they've gone to through COVID.
Mhm.
And then we'll get a better idea.
well, God knows it's been a tough couple of years.
Well, if you start getting a few more, then let us know, and we'll try to take turns and drop by and check in with folks.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, and are we reasonably stable on the building front? Obviously, a piece of what we're a tenant there, but a piece of it is our responsibility, HVAC, et cetera. Just put in a generator that would run the building in the event of an outage. Kitchen's
Yeah,
okay.
they're still getting-
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Kitchen equipment is okay. We invested
Yes,
some,
we
right?
see it is working so far, and the refrigerators are good.
Okay.
So far, so
Questions,
good.
comments, anything to add? All right, thank you, Joni. Much
You're
appreciated.
welcome.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks.
So, you're warming us up at the budgets that didn't change a lot. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start off slow.
Yeah.
But one question we have, DPW on Monday,
Yes,
next Monday, and PD on Tuesday. Would you prefer to do that strictly Zoom? They're just budget work sessions where we're gonna go.
Yeah.
Is that easier to do?
I don't care.
Okay.
Sounds
Sure,
good.
that sounds good to me.
Zoom, yeah.
DPW and the police department as well? on Monday?
Yeah, back-to-back nights.
Okay.
Those are our two meatiest budgets.
Yeah, and I might be out of town next week, but I could probably zoom in anyway. So
Sorry, did you say they're on both days, Monday and Tuesday, or it's just one day?
Both days, Monday and Tuesday. DPW Monday, PD on Tuesday.
Oh,
Right.
I didn't know that. Okay.
7 PM on Monday, 7 PM on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
You should have an Outlook invite.
Okay.
It says here, Alvarez, that you accepted the invite, so
I
think
I
you-
don't
you-
say no to much, so.
you are on, you are on the hook, buddy.
It's a good indication. Just checking. You
Okay.
say jump, I say, oh, hi, I guess.
We like that about you. So both by Zoom? Both via Zoom? Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
And it's no doubt easier for the chief and Jeff Econom.
That's right.
Right.
I mean, really what we're seeing in these budgets is, inflation starting to take hold a little bit. We're seeing our electric bills going up, we're seeing the gas bills go up. NISHIP is projecting, a 12% increase in health.
Well, we just started at 12%.
Yeah.
let me ask a question along those lines. my take has been that people who live in the town but not in the village saw extreme increases in their Con Ed bills, and people who were in the village who were in our opt-out program maybe didn't. Is that accurate, or am I?
Well, if you're in the
overinterpreting
community
that?
choice
Choice
aggregation,
aggregation.
you're on a fixed
Right.
fee that does not change seasonally.
Right.
I think the next contract is sometime in the summer they go out to bid.
Yeah, actually, they're gonna be presenting,
Right.
at our net on the 14th, March 14th.
Okay.
They're coming in to talk about the next contract.
Well,
Right,
because
but-
we really ought to play that up, because there were people in the town of Mount Pleasant who had like bills that were 4 and 5 times what is typical.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when the next contract happens, those rates are likely to go up based on what's going on, but among the things community choice aggregation delivers is a fixed fee. And even in an environment of stable, relatively stable rates, the rates are higher at high demand times. And people get essentially much more level billing this way, so. And just right now, that's turned out to be a great gift. There have been moments, and there will always be moments, when the contract fee ends up a little higher than what the market fee is. But when the market spikes like this, it's a great place to be. So.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening. We have departed our regular session. We have now returned briefly to work session. What
Mike is here
was on?
to discuss the summer camp scholarship program.
Oh, right.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for reminding me back. Hey, Mike.
How's everybody doing?
Fine. How about you?
Good, good. So the scholarship program, we started it last year. This will be the first year where we're back to normal camp. So I just wanted to discuss how we're going to do it and the funding. Last year we had two things that people could provide us. Either they were part of the SNAP program, or they were getting a free and reduced school lunch through the school. I'd like to keep it that way. I think those two options that are easy for us to get documentation as part of these programs, and then we can then further give them a camp scholarship. I've touched base with the school, so we're on the same page. When people are looking to get information, we know who to send them to get documentation from the school. And as far as the SNAP program, I'm not super familiar with it, but it is a state program. They should be able to provide documentation that they are part of that program. I think that'll be handy for any of our youngsters that may be looking for scholarship. And when I mean youngsters, I mean Tiny Tot Junior Camp that are not in school yet.
Mike, can you tell us how it went last year? How many scholarships we ended up giving out and how that worked?
It ended up being fine. The back end, it was a little hectic getting people to get the documentation, but we figured out we had, I believe it was 9 for about 8,
That's awesome.
a little over $8,000 in scholarships, which is great. I think it definitely helped some folks in the village, and I think it was very appreciated. In the time I've been here, we haven't done anything like this, so I think it's a positive.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to David, who really pushed this project.
And thanks, Mike, for making this happen.
And so, Mike, the other, because what we'll need to do legislatively is have a resolution that clearly defines the parameters and the dollar amount we want to allocate. So last year we allocated 15,000. There's also another 2,600 in a CM account from the donations. If you all recall, there was a donating effort. So if we want to keep that level funding, and then secondarily, Mike, last year was a refined camp season. This year there's teen travel camp. Mike, what's your recommendation?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. My recommendation with teen travel, because it's a smaller camp, is that we focus the scholarships on junior and senior camp. Teen travel is only going to be, if we get there, about 40 kids max. I think leaving the scholarships for the preschool and elementary level kids makes more sense.
I'm trying to think, is there a way that we can designate the money and then see what comes in?
What do you mean in terms
Well, I just mean like if so for instance, if a family has a teenager who can't be left at home all day along with, younger kids, then it doesn't necessarily work, right? I totally get the fact that it's a smaller, more expensive program, but there's not really an alternative for that age that we're providing, right?
Right. So do you want to, plausibly we could carve out a couple scholarships, if the board deemed necessary, I guess, for teen travel camp.
Or we could just leave it as a pool, focus our promotion on the younger kids, but if their requests come in, we can, entertain them for the...
Are you okay with that, Mike?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I just like, and we'll have it in a resolution, what that number is. So if we start approach that, what is our approach? Are we set on that amount, or are we willing to find some money to meet additional campers if necessary? We had 9 in a reduced camp year. I'm hopeful, and I think we're going to bounce back to normal, if not better, this summer.
Yeah, I would, this is one of the things that would qualify for use under the federal funding, for one thing. I think it has a high impact for the people who are doing it. That means that they can work, basically. So I would like to approach it with an open mind about if it turns out to be more popular, then we can consider adding scholarships.
Okay.
That's
And
okay with,
Mike, do you recall, did we do this on a first come, first served basis, or was this a lottery system?
It was first come, first serve.
We didn't use everything we had, right?
Right. We didn't use everything we had.
Again?
We didn't use everything we had in the funding, right?
No.
We could have accommodated more scholarships than were asked for.
right.
Right,
Oh, that's good.
but part of my concern with, asking about how many and how much is, last year was a different camp, a different price. We're back to normal and potentially teen travel, which is significantly higher cost per camp.
Right.
The price per camp was a little bit higher last year, wasn't it?
Jane, did you have
Am I
a
misremembering
thought?
It depended on because it was one camp, so it was, I believe it was $960. So for 6 weeks, compared, that was right around, I believe, what it was in the past. This year for 6 weeks for senior camp, it'll be $1,008.
Okay.
Shane McGaffey, 75.
Hold on, let me.
He's got a
I
That's
gotta
all right.
scroll.
I'm filming over there.
No, I know, but I gotta
Oh,
scroll
you have to get
to
me
you
too?
here.
Okay.
It ceased. It knocked me out of control here. But I'm coming back to you,
All right,
Shane.
I'll wait.
There you are.
There you are.
All right.
Okay, here we go. You're on.
I just wanted to give you the numbers. I can't for the village, but I just wanted to say, we know in the school district that 13% of the students get free and reduced lunch.
13%?
13%. So, I
Okay.
mean, I don't know if that's a guideline potentially you guys can use in terms of
And
planning.
does that differ in any way between the 3 schools?
That's
Aggregate
average,
over
yeah.
all 3.
How many
we could probably provide that for you. If
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
total students? How many?
so you're
In the
about
district?
1,600.
1,600. So
That's quite
You're like 200 kids.
yeah, 200 kids. That's, I remember saying
Yeah. So, I mean, it's potentially a guideline in terms of
Yeah.
what potentially
Yeah.
could happen with camp. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Just want to give you that information so you can plan potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's a good
thank
point.
you, Shane.
Sorry, Shane, just to be clear, what free and reduced lunch equals SNAP. They're not two separate designations,
That's economic,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Economically disadvantaged,
They're
right.
the same thing, okay.
Right. And that was the metric, I believe, that Mike was using, right?
Yes.
Free and reduced
Yes.
lunch?
Yes, yeah,
Or SNAP, so, yeah.
got it.
All right.
Yeah, so I'd suggest let's put in. We had a number we didn't use last year. Let's keep the same number, but rather than turning people away, come back to us if
if it's going up, and I'm sure Eric will carefully secret some money away in case that happens.
Yeah, so we would have, what's that, Mike?
We're gonna put a deadline, on applications for this, so people to contact us that they want it, so there will be a deadline, so I think that'll help us, guide us more, or, if we're fine.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So what we'll do is we'll allocate 15,000. We have the additional 2,600, and then if we have to amend the resolution to increase that amount based on,
Yeah, because that basically lets us double what we gave last year, right?
most likely, yeah.
Before we need to go back to the well to add money to that, right?
Sure.
Okay,
Sounds good.
all right, great, thank you, Mike. We also had on here a follow-up discussion regarding the pool and the flood remediation issues. Always more ways to spend money.
Right.
So, short version of a long story, correct me if I've got any of this wrong, Eric, is that the latest preliminary number for the pool looks like it may be more like 3.8 million instead of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then that, when paired with DeBruin Engineering's estimate for the several versions of flood remediation, are anywhere between $500,000 to $1.2 million.
Right.
Recognizing that the more money we spend, the more protection we get, but even at the $1.2 million, it would be insufficient to completely protect the pool against an Ida level storm. So there, it's not as though the 1.2 million is a perfect solution. Simply, the more money you spend, the more water we can divert around the pool and the pool house.
So what level storm would it protect against? Something, I guess, a little less.
So,
Yeah, I mean, Bob gave us that in the report, right?
I was
Yeah.
not there.
Oh, right, you
Yeah.
were.
so there's one option, essentially a $600,000 estimated cost would provide a 25-year reoccurrence rate. Right now, the current condition's 4-year reoccurrence rate.
So, and just to be clear, not that I pretend to fully understand all of this, but when you say a 25-year storm, what that essentially means is not that there's 25 years between every storm. Obviously, nobody can predict that.
I know, yeah.
What it means is that there's essentially a 1 in 25 chance of having that storm at any point.
According to pre-climate change metrics.
Right. Well, no,
no, according to updated metrics.
Well, the metrics are constantly changing,
right.
but in essence, you could have, people say 100-year storm, and it's like, oh my God, we had a 100-year storm. That's the last one of our lifetime. You can have 200-year storms in a month. It isn't that has never happened in history. It's just that across a very wide analysis, and there's a whole statistical system that goes into this, the odds of that happening are low. And if the 100-year storm is essentially at any given moment, there's a 1 in 100 chance you're going to have that storm today.
But of course, that keeps changing, right? That's
Well,
a shifting.
it may, but the reality is we've had 2 very substantial storms that affected the pool in the space of 4 years. And prior to that, I'm not aware of ever having had it, right? And who knows what that's about. That could be about more severe weather. It could also be about changes that are going on somewhere in the 850 acres of land that feed this watershed. We certainly see that on a micro level in various neighborhoods where somebody has a flooding problem that they never had before, and that turns out to be because somebody up the line, so to speak, diverted water out of their property, and it ended up on somebody else's. Not with any malice, it's just that if it's not going in your property, it's going to go in somebody else's. Right. So, you could either make this argument. First off, given what appears to be the case that the estimate for the pool may be 25% higher than was originally thought, that adding to the potential $1.2 million to buy the highest level of storm protection, even though it's not perfect, is that a moment to say, okay, we're going to throttle back and buy less storm protection?
I'm gonna have to dig into the materials so that I,
Yeah. So you have the De Bruin
it's a
engineering
diversion,
report.
essentially, is the
Yeah,
idea.
essentially what the short version of a long story is, at the moment, water comes through the spillway at the dam, it goes through a channel, it goes in a culvert under the pool house, it goes under the parking lot, and then it emerges in the open brook.
Mhm.
The pool house was built on top of what was once an open brook.
Mhm.
That
First mistake.
system is not able to handle the amount of water that it got hit with in Ida or that
Right.
storm a few years back. And so what Bob has proposed is several different ways of adding more capacity, essentially an underground culvert, to manage more water and get it past the pool and the pool house without it ending up in the pool. And the most expensive option, but also the most reasonable one, is to, since we're digging up the pool deck anyway, to add another culvert essentially between the pool and the pool house. The folks on our back lane were concerned that this would have an impact on them. And Bob De Bruin is clear in saying all that water is ending up in the brook anyway. It's just a question of how it gets there and how damaging it is along the way to the pool. So, you know, perfect world, and it's certainly what I said before, prior to the idea that the pool might be more expensive than we thought, was it felt like one of those moments where you don't kick the can down the road and leave a future board saying, why didn't those guys do a bigger job, right? That said, we're now at the point where the numbers are starting to get nervous-making.
Mhm. And is there a consensus about the best way to manage the water? I mean, is the culvert that you're describing, is that kind of the only solution?
Essentially, right?
Well, but also the way, I forget the term, but kind of extending the surface area of the original, what's it called? The original spillway at the very top. The weir, yeah.
Yeah.
Extending the surface area of the weir also is a mitigation measure that is part of the plan. So the one that we were looking
And
at,
that
that's
piece
the highest.
could be unlocked from the rest of it. I mean, you could build a fancy culvert and build a weir later, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one for, the option for $600,000 would be a pipe that wouldn't be the capacity to extend the weirs, but in the future could extend the culvert around into the parking lot. And at that point, put bigger piping and put a weir system in.
And there's no scenario in which you would divert the water above ground somewhere adjacent to the pool?
And make it a slide?
I mean, how would you do that?
No, I mean,
Well, like an additional collecting pool kind of thing.
Oh,
I'm
like
just,
a retention
I'm not
basin?
an engineer.
So,
I'm
no.
just-
so
Yeah,
here's
I
the
don't think
interesting
I
thing.
don't think we have the land for any kind of
I
retention.
mean, here's the interesting thing that we have for years and did in Ida. Park guys go up and open up these gates to reduce the level of the pond in anticipation of a storm by 4 feet or so.
Yeah.
And Bob De Bruin did all the calculations and says
15 minutes.
more or less all that buys is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The pond is nowhere near big enough to
Interesting.
really
Yeah.
accommodate enough water to make a difference. And I mean, in the
So it
nicest
needs
possible
to go
way,
down the stream, basically.
in the nicest possible way, he said, you're probably not buying yourself any benefit. You could save yourself the trouble.
Okay.
So, I mean, and part of our problem here is there's so much water. It's 850 acres draining into that route, all up the hillside in Mount Pleasant.
Wow.
All naturally occurring stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's some diverted water too, but unlike, for example, you look at the catchment basins that were built in front of Toll Brothers on Washington Avenue. That whole system worked like a charm during Ida, and there was no flooding on the low side of Washington Avenue because the water accumulates there and then it's released more slowly when the system can take it. But that's draining a much smaller area of acreage. You get to the 850 acres and the pond is it would almost be no different if the pond weren't even there. So.
Well, people
Which
in
is
California
interesting,
are
because
jealous
at one
of
point
these
the pond wasn't there.
People what?
in California would like to have these problems.
Yeah, right.
Somebody has to remember this.
Yeah, right, the
pond-
other
If you
side,
drain
yeah.
it and send it to Arizona.
The
that's-
pond is a human creation. It wasn't
yeah.
a pond.
Yeah.
Someone built it, that dam to create
Yeah.
a pond.
All right. Sorry to add on extra time to this.
So at any rate, I mean, the issue that we confront is one can hope that the pool numbers in the end, when it goes to bid, are better than we feared, but maybe not. Little side story there is that this stormwater problem and the delays the Department of Health and the county reviewing these things almost certainly means that someone like Eric, who has to be realistic, needs to overrule someone like me who wants to be optimistic, which does not seem likely that we can achieve the schedule we hope to be on for the pool project. Shoveling the ground in the fall. Now we're talking shoveling the ground next fall.
Most likely, if we want to keep the pool season, not lose a pool season.
Right.
And is
so,
that in part because we have to do this flood remediation project first?
Partially, that requires us to get permitting through the Army Corps of Engineers and the
because inexplicably it's a federal waterway.
Yep.
The Army Corps of Engineers is in charge of navigable waterways. I think it's all Steve Lord's fault because of the duck race.
Can we get some federal,
Yeah, I
federal
would
money
say,
as well? To,
I don't know, maybe I'm just feeling optimistic, but I would say that the fact that these are infrastructure projects and that they're climate change related
Yeah.
infrastructure projects is exactly the language that we're hearing coming out of our federal government right now about.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I know the money's not there. We have a small amount of federal money, but I think it's very possible that funding could be
That would be great if it
secured,
happens. And,
which would also be a reason to delay it 1 year
Is there, I'm
to line
wondering,
up that funding.
right.
Eric, or is there an entity that we could turn to that might help us figure that out?
What funding?
Yeah, federal
Yeah.
funding, since it is definitely
You can hire
a
grant
climate,
writers. That'd be
Yes.
Yeah. So we're
a
certainly
climate-related issue.
included in this year's budget will be a grant writing consultant. And that will be one of the priority projects that we asked them to focus on.
And we have this April 1 deadline for this
Yep.
grant program
Yep.
attached to the county hazard mitigation.
Yep, FEMA has a hazard mitigation grant program. I think there's about $230 million available in New York State alone for flood remediation projects. So certainly we'll submit for the pool project.
Okay.
We have ARPA funds, whether we want to use ARPA on operational capital needs, and we'll go over the capital schedule. That would free up something like fund balance to allocate towards the pool. Or use ARPA for the pool, but it's
So the other
pocket
piece,
or the other.
Related to the De Bruin study of the pool is that we have several neighborhoods that were very, very badly affected in Ida by stormwater, and in some cases there is less we can do because it's land we don't own. But one of the things we've thought about and Jeff has investigated is the possibility of creating a detention basin, in essence, kind of a hollow in the ground, up between Willow and the DEP Allen plant. Again, a place where water would accumulate and then would make its way through the waterway that gets it down behind a lot of those houses to Seneca and ultimately into Thornwood, causing all that flooding to slow it down. So
Would that affect the pool as well?
no, the totally separate. Well, no, it wouldn't affect the pool. It's downstream.
So there's no way to put something upstream of the pool.
We don't own the
It's not
land.
our land.
Yeah, we don't own the land.
And it's most, first of all, within the village, it's all undeveloped land, and you've got the aqueduct up there. It was a striking number, that 850 acres draining into that.
Well, I think that number, getting back to this away from the residential issue you were just mentioning, I think that number of the 850 acre watershed very much helps our applications for this funding.
Yeah.
You know, to our state assembly, to state senate, to Mondaire Jones, and say, this is a significant chunk of the district you represent, you folks represent.
Well,
You know,
the
it's
fact
not,
that
it's
we-
not just our local pool, it's this entire watershed that our village is putting forward, you know, a vision for this whole watershed based on climate change that we've already seen. I just think it's I don't know, I think it's a really strong argument.
It might help, I can tell you, you know, so far, obviously, a lot of money has been uncorked from the feds down county for places like Mamaroneck that were
Yep.
just destroyed. And understandably so. I mean, those communities were just as bad as the impacts were for us in a few neighborhoods. That was wholesale destruction. So whether in the end there turns out to be enough money to spread around after those very high-profile problems, especially along the Sound Shore, get addressed is an open question. But you make a good point. So,
It's definitely
you know,
worth looking.
I mean, really, what we're looking at here is the water is going where it has gone for centuries. It's just that people have built stuff in the way of it.
And so I think the big takeaway that the staff will need to move this forward is, I guess, what level of the flood protection? You know, do we want to go with the 100-year for the $1 million mark, or the less costly?
So I saw the budget memo that was written. What would be really helpful for me would be if you can create a simplified Excel sheet with a sensitivity analysis, meaning putting in some of those revenue flows that could be coming from the new ratables in that, and then allowing us to play with, oh, now we have an unexpected $1 million project. What does that do to all of our, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to work on that, but I mean, when you look at it holistically, it's good to take a baseline number and say this is the baseline. If there's so much that goes into the annual assessments, right? There's property values go up and down all the time, and so to forecast that out becomes difficult. The other thing is the projects don't all come on at one point.
No, of
as
course.
they become as
I
they
mean, you
get
could be
their COs.
conservative, but those are two pretty big buildings.
Yeah.
That are going to have a significant effect on the tax
Absolutely.
base.
So
we can't ignore them.
right, absolutely. So you know we can give a range.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is, like, if it's in an Excel sheet where you don't have to. So what I saw had a fairly complex set of cash flows for the bonds themselves, but then nothing else on the costs. So you could simplify those, but then add it in, you know, the basic. Oh, so here's this building, here's that building, the potential revenues, and then we could sort of play with it, because nobody wants to leave the village without, you know, an adequate general reserve fund, or without the ability to sustain what happened in this building somewhere else that we have to fix it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I do think also probably the village is growing at a rate that may allow us to make some of these investments.
I mean, it certainly helps, but I can say, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that increase in ratables, though very beneficial, largely mitigate the built-in increases through inflation, personnel contracts,
It
and
may be.
healthcare.
I just haven't seen it.
They're
so,
not giving
yeah.
us as much as one
Extra
wishes
money.
it would. It doesn't give us as much extra bandwidth as we hope, but we should look at those numbers for sure.
I think I would second Michael's thought that we should really do the most we can to see if there's any federal money for this, but offhand, I think that it probably makes sense to spend the larger amount. I mean, it pains me to say that, but just in terms of the reality of the world that we're living in and are looking at going forward, that seems like the responsible thing to do to me. It's my 2 cents on the subject.
I agree, and to just give another reason we haven't said it out loud tonight yet is the life of the pool is going to be so long. Or what do we think? It's more than 50 years,
Well,
right?
ours is, yeah.
Like a well-built pool is more.
Right.
So it's the investment in the flood remediation is our gift.
Yeah, it's an extension of.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
as I
the-
said many times
It's the
sat here and thought,
unsexy work.
I wish they had done that
Yeah, I mean,
before
it's
I
not,
got here. But-
it's not the sexy work of government, but it is, you know, when Mike Bloomberg spent $10 billion on water infrastructure in New York City, you know, hardly anyone even read those stories, but they secured a future, you know, for that for water infrastructure there, and obviously that's New York City. I know it's a totally different thing, but
Right. I don't know what our
Yeah.
prospects.
this is our version of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
there's 4 choices, so I would
It
certainly
is.
just want to see.
I mean, the trouble
Yeah.
we have here, and we may find we have it from the grant standpoint, is this $1 million is essentially trying to bypass the same amount of water around 300 yards of stuff. It's not improving flooding downstream in any way. It's just getting the water around the pool.
It's just for the
So-
sake of the pool, basically.
Right. So I don't know how that will
Yeah.
fly or not in the world of infrastructure when $1 million project somewhere else is keeping somebody's house from flooding. So
Well, and the other fundamental question is, if the $1 million is avoiding, you know,
We can't relocate. the pool.
$300,000 charges, then it's not worth it.
Right.
So that's the other part of it to
all
figure
right.
out.
Well, so Eric, I mean, given the, would you say near certainty that the project is a year off now?
I would say so at
Okay.
this point.
So then we got a little wiggle room here, but
Yeah.
not much, right? Because we
Right.
got to get the Army Corps of Engineers to agree to whatever it is we're going to do.
Yep, and we need to go through a secret process as well.
And the aqueduct is not involved because we're below it,
Correct,
thank God.
correct.
So, all right. Enough said on that for the moment, would you
So
say?
we look towards the more enhanced flood remediation work. So that's a concern.
I mean,
I'm still filming, right, so you guys wanna go into executive
yeah,
session? then?
right, just as
we can on this.
We're not there yet.
Just as Nicole said, I have a hard time not doing it as right as we can. But, you know, if we need to save $500,000 or $750,000, it's a devil's bargain that we're gonna have to puzzle out.
I don't know the answer to that until I see more numbers.
I mean, honestly,
They're all
we should see
they're
more
all
numbers.
estimates, though.
Well, I know,
it's
but
not
I
gonna
was a
help
financial
enormously.
analyst. I
So-
understand, like, you
Oh,
know.
I thought you meant flood. I thought you meant the water flow numbers.
Not the
Okay.
water flow numbers. I'm just talking
Sorry,
about,
gotcha.
like, you know,
And
the,
stupid question, but we
cash
can't
flows.
build the pool higher up, can we? No, that's the only spot for it.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And the pool house, I mean, we had an inch of mud in the pool house after Ida.
Yeah, and we talked about a wall.
Right. Well, I mean, that was why I asked the question, because it seems like the pool is particularly ill situated as far as
what
this
if we
stuff
swap
goes.
the pool and the pond?
The pool was a pond. The pool was a pond.
The pool was a pond.
That's
It
it.
was.
Yeah.
The pond was the pool.
And we talked about just a wall to divert water, like a seawall, and he estimated that would not buy us enough.
That
Not-
wouldn't
nowhere
work.
Well,
near
and you'd
enough.
have to go all the way around.
Right.
Yeah.
Pool house, it would be quite a scene, so. And then we would wash cars away.
It's true.
Oh my God, so.
All right. So
All right.
Did we answer your question at all, or were we
No, we
completely
didn't.
hopeless? You're very polite.
No, but I think we can get there in a week or so.
Sounds good.
Because
All
we're
right.
going to be
So I'm gonna
back
end
with
this,
you
Zoom.
to
Did
talk
you,
about budget.
we need a
next-
quick another
next
Zoom
Tuesday.
to get Paul into our exec session, right?
Yeah, or I can put them on conference call.
Okay, whatever. So I'm gonna end this Zoom. We're ending our work session. You're off the hook, Shane. Thank you.